I'm Agent Morris with the NSA.
We have identified some very, very interesting anomalous type of aircraft.
Traffic is quite luminous and is exhibiting some non-ballistic motion. Over.
Move very rapidly at any speed or whether any direction it wanted to go. Flag could change and go to the right or the left or go crossways without hesitating a bit.
What do you think it was?
Well, if they call it a flying saucer, that's what it is.
EWA 517, do you want to report a UFO? Over. Negative. We don't want to report.
Look, it wasn't my worst Wednesday night.
Good evening, everybody. This is Smiles Lewis, and you are tuned in to another weekly live edition of Anomaly-NOW, the news roundup show for the 501c3 Scientific Anomaly Institute, a.k.a. the Anomaly Archives. You can find out more about us at our website, anomalyarchives.org. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening later. Thank you. For those who tried to tune in to last week's show, it was not a live show. It was a pre-recorded video, audio of my lecture back in November of 2022 at the inaugural Texas UFO conference in Jefferson, Texas, put on by awesome dude Craig Woolheater, who has, of course, been putting on the Texas Bigfoot Conference for many, many, many years. And they have since done their second Texas UFO conference in Jefferson this year, and I'm sure there will be more and more of those going forward. Unfortunately, if you tried to watch, you probably were not successful because it was damn near impossible, unwatchable, in the sense that the streaming was going so slow that the 1 hour program took 5 hours to air. So it was sputtering and stuttering like I do sometimes. However, strangely enough, it is available. You can actually go to the Anomaly Archives website where you can click and watch the video from that show. The title of that lecture was UFOs Across Texas, Archiving Its Anomalous History. Of course, I start off with an overview of what's been going on in the UFO field, which we'll, of course, be touching on now, though there's been so many developments since then. Anyway, the good news is it is totally watchable now. I think it's a good presentation. There's the video version, and there's also an audio version where I've taken out all the ums and uhs, or at least a whole lot of them, and made it hopefully much more listenable. The audio quality has been beefed up a little. And as always, we put out a different audio version. Highly recommend that, maybe over the video version. And if you want, at the bottom of the page are other interviews that I did at that conference with other news agencies, as well as the videographer Christopher Jordan, who interviewed me for his show, Curious Realm, also based out of here in Austin. And all the slides from my presentation. If you didn't get the chance to see them on the video, they are all there. But like I say, it's really strange. It took 5 hours to stream, but it's now viewable in 1 hour, like it was supposed to be. I think somehow StreamYard has actually discovered the secret to time travel. I'm not sure how it works now, but somehow you can stream something for 5 hours when it's only an hour long, and it'll end up as only being an hour long. Who knows? Of course, you can also go over to our Flipboard, flipboard.com/@Anomaly Archives, and you'll find a link to all the links that we cover, that we dump there. So much information, thousands and thousands of articles. And yes, just this past couple of days and today, Tim Banal of Banal of America has released his wonderful year in review for 2023, featuring our good friend Greg Bishop. They've been doing that for like 17 years now. It's crazy. And that's available. So if you don't like our year in review, you can go there. And there's also a new, I think it's a forward by the author Mark Pilkington that he's posted to his website for the new Russian release of the Mirage Men book and documentary. By the way, great book. If you haven't ever read Mirage Men, it's probably as or more relevant now than it was when it came out. Really looking forward to reading this new series over at the Tanner F. Boyle Substack. I forget what that particular blog is called, but they've got this article, Alien Abduction and Racial Anxiety, Barney and Betty Hill Re-Examined, Part 1. For those of you who've been longtime listeners, you may be aware that I and other researchers, mostly me following in the footsteps of other researchers, they came up with this a long time before I did, talking about the issue of racial anxiety in the abduction phenomenon. These are mostly anthropological perspectives and whatnot, but other good stuff that's new over at the Flipboard. Center for UFO Studies has put out their own year in review. The CUFO, Center for UFO Studies, has got that. Got a link there, and that's from George Eberhardt, who's always a great chronicler of the strange and anomalous in the UFO scene. Chris O'Brien, similarly, this Greater San Luis Valley event log of unusual occurrences over his Our Strange Planet website. He has just dumped a whole ton of all the weird incident logs for years and years and years, and just goes on and on. There's the great links that, as always, over at our Flipboard. But, we're going to probably get some jumping in here occasionally from our good friend and helper volunteer, Victor Criterion, who's always behind the controls there, helping us out with the show, and has been such a integral volunteer with the Anomaly Archives over the years. I sent him the list of links for tonight's year in review. There it is, folks. There's just January. It's massive. There's literally about 250 news links. And clearly, we're not going to get to all those tonight. But I wasn't planning on trying to go over all those. That's actually pared down from all the many, many links that we've posted to the website over the years and to the Flipboard. Or not over the years, just this past year. So back a year ago, we relaunched this weekly news roundup after having not done it for about a year or so. And man, what a year it's been. There's just been so much happening. But of course, it really seems like it's a lot of UFO UAP news. Obviously, this has definitely been the year of UAP. Leading off at the end of the year last year, we were already seeing again this upsurge in coverage and interest in UFOs in the form of quote unquote UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena, now unidentified anomalous phenomena. Much prefer the anomaly being in there. But yeah, astronauts, historians, scientists, and officials convene to discuss stigmas surrounding UAP. The Debrief back in October, or rather in December, was reporting on a French conference that occurred back in October of that year. And it's just an example of how much coverage and how widespread this has become. And you can find links. We'll be posting. So I'll be posting that massive info link dump to the Anomaly Archives website. Not all of those links are going to end up in the comments for the information for tonight's episode. But yeah, over at the actual website, vertical-project.com, for this French conference that happened late last year, there are all the videos of all the presenters, videos from lectures by Avi Loeb, Jacques Vallée, and many others. But this is, of course, a much more science-based and international, non-English based conference that happened at the end of last year. It's just a precursor to all the things happening in 2023. And of course, in many of the things that happened in 2023 in January, this is going to end up being like a 52-part synopsis of the year, I know. Anyway, over at buffalonews.com, back in January, did aliens land on Earth in 1945? A U.S. defense bill seeks answers. Of course, that was a reference to the inclusion in the initial attempt to declassify all this stuff, referencing the now debunked, according to many, UFO crash tale known as the Trinity case that Aldo Harris and then Jacques Vallée took up in this search for information on mysterious UFO crashes. Later in the year, somebody would propose that it was all a hoax and do some pretty good job of attesting to that. So, but yeah, that was in January, there was just so much information coming out about what was going to be happening this year in 2023 in the field of UAP, UFO disclosure. UFO intelligence report raises new concerns about government transparency from the U.S. News and World Report, usnews.com. Scientific investigation of unidentified aerial phenomena using multimodal ground-based observations was a paper published in the Journal of Astronomical Instrumentation over at worldscientific.com. That's, again, evidence of just how much traction in the science community this was finally getting. Meanwhile, activists and researchers like Isaac Coy over in England continued their efforts to digitize works and put them out into the public domain, including in January, 259 issues of the North Texas Skeptic newsletter, that are now searchable PDFs online. And of course, we finally got this Office of the Director of National Intelligence 2022 annual report on unidentified aerial phenomena in PDF form that is available over at odni.gov. And so obviously, the UFO is just off to a tremendous start in January of 2023. We had reports of a very bright rotating white light UFO over Texas coming from a pilot via the FAA ATC recordings, which of course John Greenwald over at the Black Vault put out. And just all these other interesting reports that are just more strange, what's going on. Mysterious antenna appearing in Utah's hills as officials are stumped. It was reported by Vice.com and other news outlets. But moving into February, again, with tons of UFO stuff. And then that's when the weather balloon, the Chinese balloon stuff started, right? And Guardian, of course, reporting what they're hearing and what was reported by the military-industrial complex and NASA, ultimately, that most UFOs, like the Chinese spy balloon, can be explained away. But what about that 2%? This is like so much the basis of what old school ufology has been saying forever, that 80-90+% of UFO sightings can be explained, are easily explained as IFOs, identifiable flying objects, mundane things that are misidentified. And that remaining mystery part are, we could explain it if we only had enough data. And so that's that became the drumbeat from the military and the government and the intelligence community this year in response to increasingly loud calls for disclosure. That being that if we only had more data, better data, we'd be able to identify those few remaining unknowns. But then even Blue Book and other organizations in historic UFO research, even in the government, were saying there's always this unresolved small percentage, 1, 2, 5%, that remains seemingly unsolvable. Or at least, even if they don't think that there's any prosaic explanation, there may be actually something for that. But we hear less and less about that now from those quote-unquote experts, those authority figures. So meanwhile, in February, not quite UFO related, but is it? The video mysterious artwork visible from space discovered near Las Vegas. Of course, Coast to Coast AM, our friends there reported on that local coverage that happened. And we continued reporting on the closest thing to cryptozoological stuff. A tiny ape-like humanoid may still be living in plain sight. Scientists say, this one over from Popular Mechanics, of course, this being about Homo floresiensis. We don't really have much Bigfoot stuff for you this show, folks, other than my shirt that I'm wearing, which actually, there's the shirt. It's my new Eureka Springs Bigfoot Walking a Dog shirt. Thank you, Mom. She gets me. So we had, of course, our fair share of sad, tragic losses in the UFO field, but we're not going to focus on that tonight. Yes, balloons, spheres, lots and lots of spheres. That's another thing that we'd hear over and over again from Sean Kirkpatrick and others in the governmental UAP authority branch. Lots of other weird news articles. Discovery of massive early galaxies defies prior understandings of the universe. Meteorite spotted by 2 aircraft in South Texas. Loud boom heard in the area. And, of course, the really weird life-imitating art. After a train derailment, Ohio residents are living the plot of a movie they helped make. I believe that movie would be White Noise, which, if you haven't seen it, is a very strange little film that involves an Ohio train derailment causing kind of an end-of-the-world sense of urgency, when, in fact, the movie is about some other weird, fun, crazy, mind control-esque type stuff. Definitely recommend you check that out if that's your thing. Yeah, so we have this Chinese weather balloon, the Chinese spy balloon flap that triggered the other balloon surveillance platform flaps that still to this day are largely unresolved. I will say I only just recently read about the fact that certain officials in the military are now saying that they actually knew about the Chinese balloon well in advance of when the public was made aware of it. And that, in fact, they had already determined that it was tapping into an American-based internet company, and that the data that it was sending and receiving data that way that was helping determine where it was, both for the Chinese and us as we were tracking it, and that may be part of why they weren't making it public. Of course, it's also been said that these sudden plethora of balloon and other UAP sightings are just because the Navy, the military, government have been recalibrating their surveillance equipment, and that there is better sensory better information from these sensors detecting the stuff. That's been advanced as an explanation for the many Navy videos that have been the staple of this new wave of UFO UAP publicity, all which may be true, but begs a lot of other questions. So other things that happened, articles that came out in February of last year, this interesting one, Dissecting the Grasshopper Abduction of 1974. This was put out by our good friends Brent Rains over at apmagazine.info. And let's see, Chip Gaines bought Larry McMurtry's historic Texas bookstore. Woohoo! Bookstores rule, dude. Of course, old hat writer, long-term UFO researcher Kevin Randall, he had put out a book on the Lubbock Lights and made an appearance on Coast to Coast talking about that. Meanwhile, 2 Air Force vets have testified to witnessing mysterious objects turn off 10 nuclear warheads and shoot test missiles. Yes, so this whole idea of the nuclear element of sightings tending to happen around nuclear facilities, the stories of them affecting our nuclear missiles, not just here but in other countries, was also being pushed forward a lot during February of last year. Moving along to March, and of course, we're covering all this real time with the weekly news roundups of Anomaly Now, which were also linked in here. Of course, the other thing looming this whole past year, this is the year of AI. This is the whole year of artificial intelligence. And does it already exist? Is that what the rumors over the last couple of months? I mean, that is absolutely what the rumors are these last couple of months, that general AI has been achieved and that it's either leaking its own existence via AstroTurf Twitter accounts, or is being sequestered behind data walls at one of these big companies developing it. Who knows? But AI recreates what people see by reading their brain scans. That was always a favorite topic of mine. Hopefully someday, for better or worse, we'll actually have a dream recorder and soon have the ability to have synthetic telepathy, perhaps. And this is one of those news reports from science.org where MRI or EEG data is somehow being analyzed by artificial intelligence style software that is able to actually determine what you are seeing in your mind's eye. Similar functionality. That's pretty amazing. Meanwhile, our good friend Michael M. Hughes reported in March that the Satanic Panic is alive and well in Southern Maryland when he went to give a lecture there about the occult and tarot, hit one of his areas of expertise. Certain locals who are terrified of the occult and think it's all just the work of the devil made their presence known. This is also in March when we got the quote-unquote leaked, but really just a premature release of the draft article, essay, science paper between Avi Loeb and Sean Kirkpatrick. I say all this because apparently it's Sean Kirkpatrick has in recent interviews just pointed out that this wasn't leaked onto the internet. It was just released early and that was not approved by him to be released. And that was their physical constraints on unidentified aerial phenomena paper, which of course you can find over at this harvard.edu website. And so what else was happening? Again, more strides in the UAP scene with groups like Americans for Safe Aerospace. That was an outgrowth of an aeronautical-oriented organization having a focus group that then was made more ratified. And of course, again, not to lament, I'm so glad and happy for them, but this is like an old idea by groups like NARCAP, NARCAP, which I'm not going to rattle off what that stands for, but basically it was a group of UFO researchers who were focused on the aviation safety issue with regards to UFOs. Obviously, if you've got things flying around that you aren't sure what they are or where they're from or what their intent is, and they're getting close to your aircraft, that could be dangerous. Duh. Meanwhile, from geopoliticaleconomy.com reports, the U.S. is spending millions on Havana syndrome research, but it's not clear if it exists. That is yet another subject area that's fantastically intriguing to me and anybody who studied the mystery hum or anybody who studied non-lethal weapons and mind control technologies and the history of electromagnetic harassment at American embassies around the world. And then, of course, it dovetails with the UAP subject by way of Dr. Gary Nolan, who has been pretty open about his having been approached by the CIA to investigate data that they had, physiological data of people who'd had close contact with perceived UFOs, UAP, and the brain effects that he claims are similar to the effects on the brains of people who've experienced Havana syndrome. What does it mean? I'm not sure. Meanwhile, we started to get this, speaking of Gary Nolan, he was, eventually, and I know we have it somewhere in here, reference to his appearance at the SALT conference, where he started talking about, that's, I think, maybe where the Saul Foundation may have been first publicly mentioned. But he mentions this idea that also came about from both the Reddit forums and in this, was it space.com article, alien mothership lurking in our solar system could be watching us with tiny probes, Pentagon official suggests. This idea emerging that, again, it's very much just like, well, what are we now enmeshed in, and how does that affect, how does that color our perception of what the UFO phenomena might be? Well, artificial intelligence, nanoprobes, self-replicating AI bots, and, well, what if there's some kind of mothership either on the planet, in the ocean, on the moon, in our solar system, that somehow is manufacturing all these UFOs, these UAPs, and the reason that there's so much diversity is that, well, they're built individually for whatever particular mission or operation they're needed for. This idea seemed to kind of emerge there early last year, and I think it may gain traction, I think, but also through the writings of Diana Pasulka and others thinking even more about the idea of non-local, non-linear time-based information elves of hyperspace. AI from outside of time and space. Oh, yes. And then, of course, late March was this NORAD intercepts balloon over Texas from the Intercept over at thedrive.com. And yes, more cryptids, out-of-place animals, 2 megamouth sharks caught on video for the first time ever. I think that may also have been in Texas. Moving into April, strange animal caught on camera in South Texas sparks debate. This one from CBS Austin. I don't know, wombat, big fat beaver. This headline I remember talking about on the show, bees are sentient inside the stunning brains of nature's hardest workers, gave me all sorts of ideas about one of my pet theories that the nature of the UFO phenomena is that it's all the many different types of collective consciousness, not just from our human collective unconscious, but from the collective consciousness of other species on this planet, including the insect kingdom, and that the hive-mindedness of the alien entities may be somehow related to the collective consciousness of the bees, or just the nature of collective consciousness in general as being this onion layer of consciousness upon consciousness upon consciousness, or Gaian consciousness, the planet's mind herself. Of course, organizations like the SCU, Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies, based out of here in Austin with Robert Powell, they've been very active trying, again, with so much attention being on UFOs and UAP, trying to get the political authorities to do the right thing and move the football forward when it comes to disclosure or transparency and actually science. We got some interesting interviews from Ray Stanford, thanks to Jeffrey Mishlove, Guidelines for Future UFO Researchers with Ray Stanford. That's on the New Thinking Aloud YouTube channel. There's a great series of interviews from Ray Stanford. Highly recommend that. Whatever you think of Ray, I recommend that. Yeah, weird sounds, mysterious buzz in the ocean. That also in April. Moving right along to May. I had already been hearing this, and then when I saw this headline, reality check, there's almost certainly no serial killer in Austin. Well, call me a pessimist, but I bet there is. Not because of what is being reported here, which is there's a particular area right close to where the Anomaly Archives was, coincidentally. No, there's no connection there other than Rainey Street, a kind of an alternative 6th Street near downtown Austin, near I-35 goes right to the river. A lot of drinking happens there, and mostly men keep being found in the lake deceased. And the idea by authorities is that, no, they're just getting drunk and falling, hitting their head and drowning, sadly. This is from Texas Monthly. Reality check, there's almost certainly no serial killer in Austin. And meanwhile, we get Magic 12, the UFO control group inside the government. No. Physicists identify new quantum state called Magic. Okay. Meanwhile, we've got lots of mind links from Vice.com. Scientists detect brain activity in dying people linked to dreams and hallucinations. Meanwhile, UT creates a device that reads minds, turns thoughts into text. That one from CBSAustin.com. And of course, Texas, everything's bigger here, right? We get more reports of monster, quote unquote, caught in Brazos River near Baylor University, KCENTV.com. There you can see the picture of this giant, looks like an alligator gar to me. Those things do get pretty huge. Meanwhile, a monster 31-pound striped bass caught at Lady Bird Lake in Austin. Again, that's the lake that these poor, unfortunate souls are being found dead in from the serial killer story. This article, though, is mysanantonio.com, and you can go look at that beauty of a bass there. And it's in May that Douglas Dean Johnson, going back to the UFO topic, puts out his multi-article deconstruction of why he thinks the Trinity UFO crash story is a hoax. And I gotta say, as much of a huge fan of Jacques Vallée as I am, and it certainly does give one pause to think that someone as great, if you thought he was great, could succumb to such an obvious hoax. I still, it's one of those things. I don't doubt anything really in Mr. Johnson's multi-article explication of the Trinity UFO crash hoax. It makes sense to me what he's proposing. And so I guess at this point, it becomes a matter of, well, so it's just another story. It's just another piece of the mythology. Does it gain traction? How has it been influenced by different ideas in the field? And one can still find some interesting angles, I think, from looking at it like that. But other people will just go, oh, nope, that's it for Vallée. He's done. And yet, I think this was, just like this was the year of UAP, this was also the year of Jacques Vallée in a lot of ways. In a negative way with this particular case. But as I said in a previous show, after the Saul Foundation conference, it seems like so much is the coming to fruition of all his decades of work, including as documented in his decade-by-decade diary, his Journals of Forbidden Science. All right, so I mentioned AI. So there's also this UFO Hunters built an open source AI system to scan the skies. That's one's from another Vice.com article. More stuff on lucid dreaming. Sleep language could enable communications during lucid dreams from arstechnica.com. And then we got the second annual Archives of the Impossible conference subtitled Transnationalism, Transdisciplinarity, Transcendence. And while I wasn't able to physically attend this year's Rice University Archives of the Impossible conference, I was able to watch it because they're doing it all for free and that was available online streaming. All those videos are available at their website. And I think if you go to the Anomaly Archives YouTube channel, there is a playlist there where we've put them all into easy back-to-back order. And again, so that represents the other aspect of the sea change that is this massive push in the UFO UAP world is the academic realm. And I think Rice University exemplifies that growth there. There was a lot of dream and UFO stuff there in May of this past year. Targeted dream incubation at sleep onset increases post-sleep creative performance from nature.com. Dream glove boosts creativity during sleep from science.org. And this was in May, that SALT Eye Connections conference in New York, where Dr. Gary Nolan said to Alex Klokas, 100% aliens have already arrived, and where he mentions the Saul Foundation and started to make some very public and intense UFO statements. And then again, back to the AI, ChatGPT, Sam Altman faces Senate panel, Wall Street Journal reporting on that. And of course, this is the same Sam Altman that later in the year is going to get booted from the company and then rehired. And that's where all these rumors did they actually discover AI and what's really going on? And are we safe from Skynet? Is it going to get us? Microsoft says new AI shows signs of human reasoning. This is the New York Times via dynews.com. And some history of artificial intelligence and AI in Austin from Travis County traviscountyhistorical.blogspot. Probably not an official government site, but interesting article nonetheless. And then, of course, this news that even meteorologists are not immune from the effects of the QAnon conspiracy community. Murderers and criminals. Meteorologists face unprecedented harassment from conspiracy theorists. Yeah. Meanwhile, NASA finally gets into the act on the UFO UAP thing, and they provide coverage of the UAP Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena meeting. And you can go watch that video there. NASA UFO panel in first public meeting says better data needed, as I was saying earlier. And NASA UFO team holds public meeting ahead of report, BBC News. public meeting on more and more, just lots and lots. Again, halfway through the year, and it's just the UFO thing, UAP thing is just gearing up. And then June, oh my God, my birth month, the floodgates open. Yeah, just look at this. Unexplained orb UFOs are flying all over the world, says NASA UAP panel. That's from iflscience.com, iflscience.com. UFO reverse engineering project should be made public, ex-Intel official. This is when David Grush comes on the scene. I really, as I said, was not really aware of him before, but he had been making the UFO circuit for the past year or two, both professionally and through the UFO community proper, the amateurs and the professionals. And all this leads to the congressional hearings led by a bipartisan effort, but it's interesting. Again, people who hadn't necessarily in the political scene exercised or expressed particular interest in UFOs, UAP, but now they're jumping on the bandwagon. And, when they're hearing these crazy stories about crash saucers, pickled aliens, and government cover-ups, they're like, hey, wait a minute. I always want government transparency as long as it doesn't compromise national security. Yeah. In the midst of all this is an interesting one. NEISD signs historic agreement with NASA to open Space Academy in San Antonio. San Antonio has a very strange history when it comes to UFOs via UFO experiencer, abductee Whitley Strieber, who has also claimed that he is the victim of some kind of mind control technology, a mind control program that happened there. And well, what do you know? And this, of course, this was from KSAT.com in San Antonio. San Antonio was where the Nazi, one of the big Nazi scientists who became the father of space medicine, was relocated as part of Project Paperclip, and also where MK Ultra stuff was going on with kids. Now, what we know is that it was just observational. They were observing kids and how they develop, hierarchical and leadership type behaviors. But given what we know about the many warped, demented, terrible sub-programs within the MK Ultra, MK Naomi, Artichoke, etc. programs, one has to wonder. But yeah, so gearing up for the whistleblower week in mid-June of 2023, on my birthday, June 12th, we got the massive 25-year anniversary. No, it's the anniversary, the multi-decade anniversary put on by Stephen Greer of his 2001, his infamous, legendary 2001 press conference. And all of this, yes, UFO UAP disclosure press conference. There's the press release there over at press.org. But yeah, nothing advanced. It's with the Fravor, Grush, Graves, the three military and governmental fellows who were testifying in the more official congressional UFO UAP hearings. Just, first person observation with Fravor, and second and third telephone game stories about the UFO recovery programs and reverse engineering programs, etc., from the other witnesses. What's happened from all that? Here we are 6 months after that. Yeah, again, astronomers, scientists, and experts convened in Paris, France to study aerial mysteries. It's just so much legitimizing of the UFO and UAP scene happening midpoint of the year 2023. And then back to some fun. UT Austin scientists discover first known Jurassic vertebrate fossils in Texas over at KUT.org. Duo may have just broken record in catfish capital of Texas. More big catfish. Look at that thing. It's huge. Over at the Houston Chronicle, chron.com. Again, another Texas largemouth bass confirmed as world record catch. That was actually from that previous article. We're halfway through the year now. Maybe we'll just make this a two-parter because, yeah. All right, folks. Thank you for tuning in tonight. It's been a pleasure, as always. I really appreciate folks tuning in. We'll be posting this, and we'll be continuing it next week. Thank you, Victor, for all the help, and we'll be back next week. Good night.